Oh, don't look now, folks. Story County, Iowa Supervisor Latifah Faisal feels really bad for the fine people of Perry, Iowa. I'm going to post this entire transcript on Rumble. I'm actually going to post this on YouTube too, but not the transcript because YouTube, you suck. So Latifah Faisal feels really bad for the events that happened in Perry, Iowa recently, where some lunatic shot up a school. She also commented on the George Floyd, the drug addict, fentanyl Floyd, and the Derek Chauvin verdict, but refused to comment on whether justice was served in the Kyle Rittenhouse verdict. I surmise that she realizes she's out of her league commenting on guns, as she has no clue how to operate them, but in fact she supports universal background checks, which will lead to a compiling of gun owner lists. If Latifah Faisal had her way, but again, she's not intelligent enough to articulate this, I think the reason she stays so generalized too, she's not very bright, but she needs to be able to, she stays generalized so she can utilize moving goalposts later. I didn't really mean that. If Latifah Faisal had her way, I surmise she would attempt to strip law-abiding, particularly white rural, the least violent segment of society, white rural gun owners of their right to defend themselves, just like Kyle Rittenhouse did. I challenged the vacuous hobbit Latifah Faisal some months ago to comment on all the murders in Fort Dodge, Iowa, since she's concerned about murder. She's concerned about black people getting killed and innocent people getting shot up by white people. I asked her to comment on the murders in Fort Dodge, Iowa, as it is one of the few places in Iowa that has a murder problem. In white rural Iowa, you go to, in any given year, I'm going off script for a minute here, over 2/3 to 3/4 of Iowa's counties have no murders. And in 2022, 90 of Iowa's 99 counties had less than 2 murders. So not really a big problem in most of Iowa. Iowa's very white. The few counties where it does become a problem, yeah, a little more diverse. You can call me racist, but you can't call me wrong. Fort Dodge does not need many murders before the rate starts skyrocketing because there's not a lot of people there. There are acts of violence in her state, but she says nothing. It's as if she isn't very bright and only comments on something when the lamestream media begins autistically commenting on it. I've challenged the vacuous Latifah Faisal on numerous occasions since she is worried about people getting murdered. Hashtag, I feel bad for you. Hashtag crocodile tears. I've challenged her to name the murder victims, most of them black, in various cities across the U.S., cities like Chicago, St. Paul, St. Louis, and Baltimore, all of which have loads of black-on-black murder. But she doesn't say anything. Latifah Faisal, if you waddled over to your phone every time there was a murder in Chicago, St. Paul, St. Louis, and Baltimore, and Detroit, and put up a hashtag I feel bad, you'd be putting up hashtag I feel real bad all the time. According to the state of Iowa, from 2016 to 2022, there were 54 murders in Fort Dodge and Waterloo combined, probably the two most violent places in Iowa. It's not Chicago level or Memphis level murderous rampages, but not bad for Iowa. Hey, Latifah Faisal, how come no crocodile tears over the murder victims in those cities, which are in your state, dummy? Do they not matter enough? Are they black enough for you? Speaking of skin color of murderers and murder victims in Waterloo and Fort Dodge, from 2016 to 2022, the state of Iowa tells us, Latifah, 40 of the 49 murderers where we know the race of the assailant in Waterloo and Fort Dodge were black. Can you believe that, Latifah Faisal? 40 of the 49 people who committed murder in those two cities in those years were black people. That's disproportionate, isn't it, Hobbit? Of the victims in Waterloo and Fort Dodge, 39 of the 53 victims where we know the race of the victim, they were black. Very disproportionate. Those cities are nowhere near even half black. And they've got murder rates combined way above the national average. So why not comment on those, Latifah Faisal? It doesn't fit your narrative. Sorry. And it would actually take some time to look it up. She'd Google how many murders in Fort Dodge from 2016 to 2022. Could Google give me an answer? I'm going to Google some facts. According to the FBI, there were 604 murders in Chicago last year, Latifah Faisal. That would keep you busy more than every day. More than one murder a day. Even you can do the math on that. 287 in Baltimore, 200 in St. Louis City, 308 in Detroit, and 387 murders in Los Angeles just last year. According to the FBI, just last year, 76% of the murderers and 78% of the victims, where we know the race of the victim and the assailant, 76% of the murders and 78% of the victims in Chicago were black. In Detroit, same thing, where we know the race of the victim and the offender. In Detroit, more than 96% of the murderers were black, and 92% of the murder victims were black. I could go on, but you get the point by now. In the state of Iowa from 2016 to 2022, of the 520 murder victims where we know the race of the victim, 42% of the victims were black, and of the 611 murderers where we know the race of the assailant, 50.24% were black. Iowa is only 4.1% black. Do the math. You could have spent a lot of time posting hashtag crocodile tears, hashtag I feel so bad, hashtag Black Lives Matter diatribes over murders in those cities, and most of the murderers and murder victims in those cities are young black males. Doesn't fit the narrative, does it? Of course, MSNBC isn't talking about it either, because it's like a routine. It's like putting underwear on in the morning. Oh, a black kid got murdered in Chicago. Oh, a black kid got murdered in Baltimore. Oh, a black kid got murdered in Detroit to drive. But oh well. The FBI gives Iowa 548 murders from 2016 to 2022, a rate of 2.472 per 100,000. The U.S. rate during that time frame was 5.784. So you can see how Iowa is uber duper super safe. And the U.S. rate spiked massively in 20 to 2022. State of Iowa says we had, this is according to the state of Iowa, gives us 530 murders, a little bit less than the FBI total. Latifah Faisal also said nothing when a carload of lunatics murdered a high school student in a school parking lot down in Des Moines. I would wager it did not get enough media attention, but the skin color of the assailants did not fit her preconceived narrative, so she said nothing. Lastly, I have a list of almost 200 cities. Again, go to Rumble for the transcript. If you're listening on YouTube, go to Rumble for the transcript. I don't post on YouTube because YouTube sucks. Lastly, I have a list of almost 200 cities, most of which vote overwhelmingly Democrat and are very diverse. And they had a collective murder rate from 20 to 2022 that was 2.6 times higher than the national average. Now, I know those of you who have listened to my videos, you're saying, oh, here he goes again. Well, you just got to keep pounding them because the Democrats are going to keep up with their white supremacy crap. White supremacy is the problem. White rural people. They're going to keep that up, so we got to keep responding to them and correcting them. Murder, especially in these United States, is concentrated in a few hundred counties. Over 2/3 of all counties in 2022 had less than 2 murders. Story County, Iowa Supervisor Latifah Faisal is a moron and a grifter who spends way too much time on her little phone Googling facts. She has no clue what she's talking about and follows the antique media pablum like a Pavlovian dog. So the next time you see Latifah Faisal posting about some violent act somewhere that made the 24/7 news cycle, send her this. Here's some other things she could worry about, but will not because it is not politically expedient. She'll likely block you when you challenge her. She does not do well with dissent. Have a nice day, and don't thank me now for the info.